What's up, everybody? How's my audio sound? Does it sound blown out at all? Or let me take a look at my levels here. I had to make some changes to the, well, this is like the really the fifth computer I've been using this week. Lots of hardware being swapped around, lots of computer surgery going on. I think this is going to be the stream machine. The only problem is, for those of you who are technical, I guess, is the video cards in this one are from an old crypto mining machine, and there are these these cheapo AMD cards that I got because you could get a bunch of I think they were 550s, and they were less than $100 a pop. And if you put like 4 of them together, they were like worth. It was the most OpenCL or whatever it is, the AMD GPU cores are called, but it was like the most cores you could get bang for the buck. Unfortunately, just as regular video cards, they're not that great. And I've always been an NVIDIA person, and I didn't realize how many problems. Well, I don't know if it's like a lot of problems, but there are some incompatibility problems with AMD video cards when it comes to cool, fancy streaming and visualization software like I've got going on right here. I've actually had to do some pretty, some electronic gymnastics to make this work, but it seems to be working. My other machine is on life support again, but I've got electricity today, which is good. I haven't had electricity. Well, hopefully, I knock on wood. Hopefully, I continue to have electricity during this stream. It has not been a regular thing. As I don't know if anyone who lives in the Southwest, and I don't think I'm doxing my location. Everyone knows that I live in a desert, and there's not exactly a desert in the Northeast. We're experiencing a heat wave. Record heat. Death Valley, it was 130 degrees. 130 degrees, the hottest place on Earth the other day. So that's nice. California is doing rolling blackouts related to this heat wave. Or I don't know, that's what they say it's related to. I kind of think it is. I know some people have some kind of conspiracy about that. Oh, it's California trying to do. No, I think it's just really that their infrastructure is not what it should be. Think about what they're spending money on. It's not infrastructure. And when you have 130 degrees in Death Valley, people running their ACs. And people don't like to be uncomfortable. I don't like to be uncomfortable, I guess, but I'm a little bit used to it. Right now, it's still the morning. It's not cool. It's not noon yet. And right now, where I'm sitting, it's, let's take a look here. Oh, good. It's 82 degrees. It's 82 degrees, which actually isn't that bad, except for it's also, I don't have the thing with me here, but it's probably like around 60% humidity because of my my swamp cooler. It's been a hot week. It's been a very hot week, very sweaty week with sporadic electricity. So that's been fun. But I figured I'd get this started here in the morning before it really heats up. When the power has been going out, it's been going out in the afternoons. So hopefully we are able to maintain a connection here. So hope you guys are having a good week, having a good summer. I wish it would end. I'm done with this summer. When the seasons change, it's always fun for like a little bit. You get like that nostalgia, like when the winter first kicks in, like when you've been going through summer for, right now it'd be like an endless amount of time. And when the winter finally kicks in and like you have that first chilly morning, when you walk outside and it's like, ooh, it's a little chilly. It's usually not chilly. And there's something about that activates a part of your brain that makes you remember the last time it was like that. I don't know if you guys experienced the same thing, but and this is true of it everywhere I've lived, right? When the season changes enough to where it's like that first day of, oh, it's winter now, or it's fall, or it's summer, you know, it doesn't matter. Anytime the season changes enough to where, oh, it's officially different now, it's like your mind starts reminiscing, or not, I don't know if that's the right word, but it starts recalling all this data from the last time that the weather was like that. So I'm I guess on the opposite side of that, so it's fun for like a little bit because you're like, oh yeah, I remember last winter, you know, last Christmas, or you know, last summer we did this or whatever, and then you get used to the change after a while, and then at least here for right now with the summer, and then you get really tired of it. You're like, okay, I get it. It's hot. It's hot all the time. Everything's hot. It doesn't stop being hot. I wish it would stop. You know, it's so hot the last few weeks. I've got cactuses that are dying in the heat. I thought, like, I don't know if they're gonna make it. Some of these guys, and they're not like you know, some kind of tropical cactus or something that shouldn't be here. You know, all those have died a long time ago. You know, these are like cactuses that should survive just fine where I am. If it would, I don't know, stop being really hot all the time and maybe rain once, that'd be good. And I water stuff. You know, it's not like I just let them fend for themselves. I will eventually, once everything's established. But yeah, it's been a really hot summer, really hot and dry summer. I think for a lot of people. You know, California through to Texas right now, there's like a heat wave map, just like this big blotch all over the American Southwest, just on fire. Actually, that's another funny thing. I didn't look into it further, but I guess California has a fire tornado. I don't even want to know what that is. A fire tornado. 2020, man. It is not. It's going to go down as one of the worst years. Well, actually, it won't. That's the shitty thing, right? It's like the opening day of bad years for the American Empire. But anyway, so I kind of want to talk about a few things. I do have, you know, I do have my actually I have a animation that I'm working on, and I've got a couple other videos on the way. But with all this computer hardware swapping around, I just, you know, like I forgot there was one video I forgot I was even working on until like I hooked up this hard drive. I was like, what's this? And like looked inside. I was like, oh yeah, it's like a half finished video. Like, it's been a mess with all these computers everywhere. Where I start working on something, the next thing I know, like, you know, there's hard drives and video cards and processors and RAM everywhere, and oh, good Lord, I want that to be over. But anyway, one of the things I was thinking about the other day, with you know, we talk about the change, you know, some of the changes that multiculturalism bring, and one of those changes, of course, is the low trust society, right? Which has rippling impacts that go all over the place. And it's not just the multiculturalism directly, right? It's not just a direct result of, you know, this group is high trust and this group is low trust, and so therefore if you have less of this group and more of this group, then it's, you know, low trust or lower trust. That's part of it. Absolutely, that's part of it. But really, a bigger part of it, I think, is even your high trust population begins to become low trust. Not just because you know, they're now surrounded by low trust people and interacting with low trust people. Again, that is part of it. But another part of it is you feel less connected to the society that you're in. So in other words, you treat your family differently than you treat strangers. I mean, even in a high trust society, that's true, right? If you know you're dealing with immediate family members, you're going to be less guarded. You're going to be more open, more honest on it. Really, I mean, you are. Maybe even like in a way like less polite, because you're just telling them how it is because you love them and whatever. But um, you're going to be you're going to have an investment in your family. You want your family to succeed, right? And part of that is the exchange of honest facts, being honest with each other. And as people realize that the society that they live in, they have no familiar connection with, what begins to motivate them, other than the success of the society, because we all get atomized and we all become these individuals, as libertarians love. You are no longer in it for the success of the society. You're in it for the success of yourself. And so you're less likely to be honest about something if being dishonest is going to personally benefit you, even if it hurts the society at large. And so necessarily what that means is innovation goes down. And one example of this, I think, what was it, last year or the year before that, we had that study come out where they were unable to replicate in an obscene amount of scientific research that was peer reviewed and published and everything else. And some group went back and started trying to replicate these studies and found that most of them, or I don't know if it was most or about half, but it was a substantial amount of them were just bullshit. It was lies. It was dishonesty. And that has a ripple effect too, because now other people are basing their research on this crap research, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And a big part of that is these researchers, they're not motivated by what is good for the nation, what is good for the group, what is good for their society. It's what's good for their career, what's good for them personally, what's good for them right now, what's going to make them the most money. You see this with capitalists all the time. When a capitalist makes a decision, it's not how is this going to impact the community that I live in? How is this going to impact the society that I'm a part of? Because really they're not. They're not a part. They don't see themselves as part of your society, certainly. The question then is, how is this going to benefit me directly? And so decision after decision is made to benefit them directly at the expense of everyone else around them. And that's just going to increase until there's not any kind of innovation. Because you won't be able to trust research. You won't be able to trust business partners. I mean, this is going to have... There's a reason China is excelling at the rate that they are, because they don't suffer from this problem. I mean, they suffer. I mean, part of this is the human condition, right? But greed is always going to be a part of the human experience. So there's going to be an element of this going on in Chinese society, everyone in it for themselves, because on some level, I think that's just how humans operate. It's a survival mechanism, right? But I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that the Chinese are more collective. They care about what happens to their society, and even if they don't, I guess they have a government that perhaps does, and that is very handsy And so they can't get away with the same sorts of things that the individualist, capitalist, libertarians can in the West and do. So that was just one of the things I was thinking about, and it's kind of tied indirectly to something else that's been in the news lately. I think a lot of you guys have been following, or at least nominally, the Millie Weaver situation, right? Now, I haven't looked up anything this morning, so I don't know if there's anything added. So maybe I'm going to be missing something, but I doubt it. But for those of you who don't know, the basic idea, as I understand it, is last week, Millie Weaver, if you don't know who that is, she's like a stringer for InfoWars. A stringer is like a contract reporter, right? So she's not an actual employee of InfoWars, but they pay her to do stories and that sort of a thing. They have a few people like that. Most people have seen Millie Weaver. She's like the blonde that has done a lot of work for InfoWars. She has her own YouTube channel. I've never actually checked out her content that wasn't on InfoWars, and I haven't really seen, to be honest, a lot of her InfoWars stuff. But I saw enough to really, my view of her, and look, I don't have any animus to her or anything like that, but I didn't exactly view her as like a hard news kind of a person, if you know what I mean. It was more of like like if to translate this to maybe like a local news station. She seemed like the kind of reporter you would send off to go cover the puppy drive, the puppy adoption drive, or something like that. And not someone that you'd have covering the White House or whatever. And, again, I don't mean to be insulting to anyone. It's just it is what it is. And so I was a little bit surprised when someone told me that, oh yeah, she released this video, this documentary that had a big expose on some deep state blah 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 stuff, and while she was releasing it, she was arrested, and it was crazy. And I thought to myself, wow, all right, well, she was really, first of all, let's determine, because already this seems like out of character. Let's find out what's going on here. Let's see if she was really arrested and all that stuff. And it seemed like she was really arrested. She really was arrested. She streamed, I guess, or uploaded, I don't know which, a video of the cop being there and arresting her, and I don't know if it's her husband or her boyfriend or whatever, at their home. And she was saying like, oh, I'm releasing this video. And so I was like, all right, you've piqued my interest. Let's see, because this is a little weird. It is a little weird. So let me watch this video and see how is this tied, if it is at all tied, because there was no real information yet at the moment as to whether or not this was even related. But it seemed like, again, you don't expect that the girl that you're sending off to cover the puppy adoption stuff to get arrested with her husband, with an indictment that was apparently secret indictment. Like, you couldn't even, there were reporters calling up the sheriff's department trying to get more information on that, and they were vague. They did say a few things, and we'll get into that in a second. But it was vague enough to where you were like, wow, maybe, I don't know, maybe it is. Let's see what's up with this video. So I watched her video. It's called, Shadowgate, I think. And I think it's off YouTube now. I think YouTube has since banned it, and so it's probably on BitChute. Which, by the way, you guys should definitely subscribe to me over on BitChute. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been on this channel. So if you've just been checking out YouTube and you're like, wow, Devin hasn't posted in a while. No, it's not true. I've been doing streams over on DLive. So go over to DLive. It's DLive/Devin Stack, not BlackPilled. There's some fake ones that are called BlackPilled, but it's not me. So go to DLive/Devin Stack, and that's me. And I've been doing streams there, and then uploading them over to BitChute. So there's actually a decent amount of hours of content that is not on the YouTube channel right now. And that's because, quite frankly, it's days are numbered here on YouTube. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows it. Everyone who uses the autoplay feature knows that. Like, they don't want you watching anything but CNN, and they just want it. They want to be Netflix. They want to be Netflix and cable TV. That's what they want. It's what they want, and that with maybe some other content creators with makeup tutorials and just garbage, mindless content. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, it's not fine. I wish they weren't doing that, but what can I do? So go over to DLive and BitChute and subscribe over there. And while you're over there, you can check out that documentary. And just, it's like an hour and change. And there are some, useful things in it. I'll give you the lowdown. The basic idea of the documentary is it's a lot of stuff we already kind of know, but I guess it gets a little more specific, and it adds one angle to it that, again, we all kind of knew, but it just adds some specificity to it. The bottom line is a lot of the products that the intelligence agencies have developed over the years for influence campaigns, originally meant for overseas. So influencing elections, influencing, I don't know, maybe rebellions, influencing revolutions. The software that they use, that they developed for these purposes, has in this, a lot of people don't realize this. Most of what gets done by these agencies, especially in terms of software, anything technical, is done by a contractor. If you might remember that Edward Snowden didn't work for the NSA. He worked for Booz Allen Hamilton as a contractor, contracted by the NSA. And that's something that is common, and very common. I've especially with agencies like the NSA, I've met a lot of people who worked for the NSA through Booz Allen, and there's other contractors like Deloitte. What's the big one? The big one. There's a big one. I keep forgetting it. Anyway, there's lots of them. And employee-wise, they have tens of thousands of employees. These are not small contractors. These are huge multinational contractors. Okay, so they have, Deloitte and Booz Allen and these types of contractors. They're all over the world. They're doing the same kind of work for different intelligence agencies, and not just intelligence agencies, government agencies essentially. So they're in the Middle East. They're in, they're working for the Saudis, developing software. They're in the, they're all over up in D.C. A lot of them have offices in D.C. and in, in Northern Virginia has a lot of these companies are based in Northern Virginia because that's where all the intelligence agencies are. And so they develop these products, these software packages for use, at the, let's say the CIA wants to do an influence campaign. They want to change the outcome of a election. They want to meddle, if you will, in foreign elections. They want to do essentially what the left was accusing Russia of doing. They want to set up shop in let's say I believe that one of the more recent ones was Afghanistan. This actually happened, and they set up all these they have software that manages this. It's a mixture of, it's like a project management software, but also kind of facilitates the actual creation of the social media account creation. You know, like the sock puppet accounts, the bot accounts. It manages the bots. It also manages the data. So if you want to go to Afghanistan and influence their election, the first thing that they do is they have data collection, and by using this data collection, they can, they scrape all of these social media accounts, and they have AI that looks for trends, and let's say that the AI determines like, oh, most Afghanis are worried about X, Y, and Z, and the cool things that they're interested in is A, B, and C. And so if you tailor your message to address X, Y, and Z, and use it with the memes that, the style, the thing that's popular with A, B, and C, you'll have the most impact. But not only that, as you deploy these memes, as you deploy these influence campaigns, because this is a real-time thing. This is an ongoing thing. This software is constantly scraping these social media accounts and constantly monitoring all interactions. That's part of the problem. A lot of people don't realize, or think about rather, that it's not just, oh, the government's spying on me. They're going to see what porno I'm looking at. That's like that doesn't matter at all to them. It really doesn't, unless you're doing something really horrific and they can blackmail you with it. That they don't really give a shit about that. What they give a shit about is the ability to develop or to come up with this big data in the first place, so they can tailor this meme campaign to deploy with whatever objective they have, but also, so because it's an ongoing thing, they can see how effective it is in real time. So if they make a meme, and just as an example, it's not just always just a meme, but let's just say they make a meme and they put it on social media, they can look at the metrics and be like, okay, well, this meme really resonated, this one fell flat. And before, so this is where AI gets dangerous. When it's mixed with big data, this is where it gets dangerous. Because before, if you had this kind of a capability, it's still kind of, it's fucked up. It's a power that no one's ever had before. But excuse me, COVID cough. The it used to be that you'd have analysts, right? So you'd have all this data coming in. In fact, that used to be the argument that the NSA would give you, that, oh, well, it's okay that we're sucking up all this data. We don't have enough analysts to sit down and watch all this stuff. So, like, you shouldn't be worried about us vacuuming up all your data, because we can't even use it. The only reason why we're doing it is if, Billy McFucknuts does a mass shooting or something, we can like go back into his social media and whatever, right? Like, that was their argument not even that long ago, like five years ago, maybe even a little bit less. But now, as we are coming to realize, they have AI that they can unleash on this unmanageable amount of data. And now all of a sudden it becomes manageable. Now you don't need 500,000 analysts reading posts and looking for trends and filling out forms, which is what they used to do. You have AI that is written by probably another one of these contractors, informed by an analyst who probably was also another one of these contractors, and they used whatever skills and whatever classifications they used when they were analyzing it by hand to write an algorithm to do it. And through trial and error, they perfect it, and they will perfect it. These AIs are getting smarter. They're really good at doing just really repetitive small things, right? Like when people think AI and they think, oh, that's like 1,000 years, 100 years, 50 years in the future, whatever, because it's so, the human mind is so complex. AI will not be able to replace us, for a really long time, and everyone's just worried about it for no reason. And if that's the way you look at AI, is a human mind replacement, you're right, because it's not going to replace the human mind for several years. I mean, I don't know, maybe who knows, there might be a huge uptick in advancements as AI starts programming itself, but as of right now, that's not the worry, though. The worry is these very specific tasks that used to take 500,000 people to do, which made this big data kind of useless, right? In a lot of ways, it was useless. It is now very useful. Very useful. Because not only can it see how well your meme is performing, after you do it a few times, after it analyzes the process, after it analyzes how it gets shared, who shares it, who shared what meme last time, at what time of day, is there maybe a different time of day that people share memes, and it can just sit there and crunch all these numbers until it finds this optimum meme delivery system. And it can, from there, it can go even further. It can start predicting how people are going to react. And then if the prediction is correct, it's like, okay, and it creates another rule in how it analyzes data. If it's wrong, it scraps it, tries something else. It's learning. People, they call it machine learning. And again, a lot of people think, oh, that's just crap. They'll never be able to, and you're not looking at it the right way. It's a very specific thing that it's doing. Very specific thing. Like the Deep Blue, when they built Deep Blue to beat the world's chess master, which happened I don't remember. It was a while ago now, like 10 years ago. That was a computer it was an AI essentially that was just really good at one thing, chess. That's all it was good at. Couldn't do anything else, but it could do chess better than the best chess master. And that's how all these AIs are going to perform. They're going to get better than any human at a really specific task. And eventually, the AIs I guess we will have to freak out about are the AIs that begin incorporating all these little mini tasks and coordinating them into some kind of consciousness or something like that. But that is a long way off. At least, I don't know. My unexpert opinion is that's a long way off. But anyway, so back to the story. So the CIA or whatever agency would go out to Afghanistan and deploy this software, this AI, that has this massive data collection. And they could tell in real time how effective it was performing. And they could and did influence elections successfully. And what Millie Weaver's video covers is one of these contractors, and I forget the name of this specific one. It doesn't really matter though that much. It's in the documentary. You can check it out. I'd like to do further research on that particular contractor, and I'm not trying to avoid don't want to talk about it. Just I don't remember the name because it doesn't. For what we're talking about today, it doesn't really matter. What matters is because this contractor is a private company. Oh, capitalism. What were we just talking about with the loss of in-group preference and doing stuff just to make money, regardless of the impact it has on your society? Because all you care about is yourself? All right, well, so because these contractors are private entities, private companies run by private individuals who don't feel any connection to you, at all, or to any of their neighbors. These are citizens of the world, if they're citizens of anything, or maybe their own kingdoms. Certainly not members of your society. And they now have this very valuable tool, this very valuable influence tool. And a lot of people would like to think, oh, well, there's no way I could be influenced by something like this. I'm too smart for that. I'm an individual. I'm an individual. You can't predict my behavior. I'm my own person. I'm unique. I'm a snowflake. And of course, that's not true. All of us are very, and this is regardless of what you believe with God. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with God. We are still complex machines, though, that have predictable behavior. I mean, I'm sure there's people that you know very well that you can predict their behavior, right? And the more you get to know someone, the easier it is to predict their behavior. And the more that you can predict this behavior, the easier it is to manipulate them. Maybe not for bad reasons, but it's true. The more you think about it like in terms of a spouse or children, or even just like a best friend or a parent. The more you get to know their personality, the more you know what buttons to push to get the result that you want. And again, I'm not saying about anything nefarious, but let's just say you want your mom to take you or let you spend the night at your friend's house. This is something that even kids figure out, right? And you know that there's like a certain type of day that you should ask. Like, don't ask her right when she gets home from work or right when she's cooking, or you develop. You're basically doing what this AI is doing. You're developing a path of least resistance. You know that, okay, if I ask her right after she's had her glass of wine with dinner and everything's relaxed and she's watched her soap opera or whatever, you're going to have the most success in that moment. And then you even know how to tailor the question. Like, that, like, okay, and if I ask her this certain way, I can't just demand that she let me do this. I have to make it sound like it's her idea. This is just basic manipulation tactics that everyone uses. And so what this product is that these contractors have developed is this exact same thing, just on a massive scale. And whether you want to believe it or not, you are manipulative. I don't know if it's, some people are easier to manipulate than others. We joke around about NPCs, right? But everyone has been manipulated at one point or another in their life. Everybody has. I have, you have, everyone's been manipulated. Everyone's had buyer's remorse. Everyone's had buyer's remorse with like a girlfriend or something like that. Everyone's made a decision because they were manipulated into making that decision and then realized after those conditions went away that, oh, I made a mistake. Or sometimes you don't realize that you made a mistake. Some people go years without even realizing they're getting manipulated. And I guess that's the NPCs, right? And so these private contractors have this software that can and does manipulate people. It just does. Given the resources and access to data necessary for it to work, it does. It manipulates people. It works. It does work, and it works on everybody to varying degrees, but it works on everybody. And it's only going to get better. I think that we saw, especially around 2016, you'd see a lot of this stuff kind of in its, I wouldn't call it its infancy, but it was a little unrefined. It was somewhat easier as time went on. You would start to notice, oh, that's obviously a Share Blue bot, or that's a whatever Hillary bot kind of a thing. And you would start to, because you'd recognize patterns, because a lot of this stuff with the AI and everything is just it's not as complex as a human, right? So it's going to have some of its limitations, but that's going to go away. That's going to slowly go away. We have they have chatbots that they've developed, right? And they do the Turing test. For those of you who don't know, it's you basically talk to a chatbot and try to determine if it's a chatbot. And there's certain methods you can use to talk that'll reveal that it's a machine, right? Like you can ask it certain things that trip it up or whatever. And that's getting harder and harder to do. They're getting chatbots that are becoming more and more human-like, and not just chatbots. There's also AIs, and these are easy to find online. Which, by the way, means they're not the best ones. Where they can, you tell it to read a bunch of newspaper articles and then write a newspaper article based on the newspaper articles that are read, and it does. And it's like 90% there. Like there's some sentences they're just like, that doesn't even make sense. But again, this is what's just publicly available for free. So that's not what they're using at all. So you have these private contractors who are not, they're not bound by FOIA. They're not bound by the Freedom of Information Act. So if you send a request to this company, like, send me all your emails on all of your dealings with Hillary Clinton or whatever, they just tell you to fuck off. They don't have to respond to anything. They're a private company. They can do what they want. This is what we're witnessing right now, is when individualism and capitalism and my private company starts to really, really spin out of control. That this whole thing with let's fight the good fight. Let's go after these censorious companies like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and that sort of a thing. Yeah, it's really kind of a small part of the pie here. That's certainly, I guess, important, and it's important that people understand that. But that's only the beginning of the problems we're going to have, unless something changes. And it's funny because it's all the people, right, that push individualism. All these people that say, oh, private companies can do what they want. It's them that they're getting screwed over by this stuff the most. Now, another thing you got to think about with this kind of a tool, right? This kind of influence tool is, if I was running one of these private companies, well, let's first take it one more step. The problem with this, the private company having, we've already described the problem, but what Millie describes in her documentary is these companies now are, it's no longer just a tool of an intelligence agency that, they still, let's just be honest. The CIA spies on Americans. It's in their charter that they're not supposed to do that, but everyone knows they do, right? But at least, there's some kind of, I don't know if it really matters that much, but there's nothing to prevent, not even some charter that they're going to ignore. There's nothing to prevent the private company to selling these tools Not just to people that want to sell you cheap sunglasses on Facebook or something like that, but people that want to influence elections, right? And that's what's happening. And that is what's happening. And it's been happening for a long time. And that's essentially what this documentary covers. And it's a little more specific. It talks specifically about a tool. It talks specifically about some of the companies, some of the contractors and the people behind these companies and that sort of a thing. And yet, like I said, this isn't a deep dive. That's not. I want to talk about the concept because I think that's what a lot of people are missing is kind of the big picture of what this is. But if you want to find that stuff out, it's in the documentary. And there's like I said, the product and the companies mentioned, it's just a drop in the barrel. There's so many of these contractors out there that have these kinds of tools and that are making them available to anyone who wants to influence the public, and they work. And I know there's a lot of people that are tired of me banging or beating the QAnon dead horse. But part of this project management software is exactly the kind of software you would use to manage a project like QAnon. It's exactly what you would use. Exactly what you would use. Think about it. You release the Q drop, or whatever that is, whatever it's called. For those of you, I think most people are familiar with QAnon, but the real short version is, and then what is it, 8kun now? It used to be on 8chan before that was on 4chan. There's an anonymous poster posting stuff like, I'm an insider and don't worry everybody, everything's going to be fine because there's patriots that are doing a secret war against the deep state, blah, 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 blah. So don't worry, everything's fine. And, here's some stuff to research because, here's another rabbit hole to go down. And everything's in code and whatever. If you're using a tool like this, a lot of people are wondering, like, how is it still going on? Like, this thing has been going on for almost 4 years now, this QAnon thing, and it just seems to never die. It seems to never die, no matter how wrong the predictions are. It just seems to keep going. Well, now, I think you have your answer. You have a product like this that after every Q drop, you are monitoring the data of all the Q people. You know exactly what they're doing. You've analyzed, like, let's say that there's one Q drop that you do, and it generates a bunch of videos, like a bunch of the Q YouTubers or whatever. They make a bunch of videos, and you get like a bajillion retweets. I guess now that's not as much of a thing because Twitter, I think, has banned the accounts. But like Gab, even, because it's not like they only monitor the normie sites. They monitor everything that's open. Think about Parler. One of the things that Parler does is Parler gets a lot of your personal data, doesn't it? You think it's not feeding that data directly to software like this? Feeding that data directly to products like this? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And for sites like Gab, they don't have to participate in like an open sharing, which I absolutely think Parler is, because it's open. It's an open website, right? Like you can just go and scrape accounts all day long, and there's nothing to stop you from doing that. Same with Twitter, Facebook, I think, to some extent. So you have this product, this AI, that can determine, okay, well, that post that you just did at this time, and you use this kind of phrasing, it generated a lot of Twitter stuff and a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of activity and a lot of engagement. That's think of it like, if you want to think of like a really small version of what I'm talking about. There are Twitter people that do this, okay? I'm not one of them, but there are Twitter people that do this, where they'll tweet something and they'll immediately open up the metrics and they will watch to see how that tweet performs. And they'll basically do by hand or manually or whatever what this AI is doing. They'll take note of the time of day that they sent it out. They'll take note of the phrasing they used, maybe the length of the tweet, different aspects, but they can see the rate at which it's being shared, and when you look at these metrics, it gives you enough data to at least kind of get a feel, right? And there are people, I know this for a fact, that really watch that. And they craft each tweet carefully based on what they've learned by watching that little screen. And it works if you're good at it. It works. And that's what that AI is doing, just in a more complex way than a human could do. Because it's looking at not just one little screen, it's looking at like a billion different metrics that no one human being could keep track of. But it's using the same methods. It's using the exact same methods. So if you want to know why QAnon's not dead, that's why. I don't know that for a fact, but I'd be very surprised if a product like that isn't being used. And that's how they keep it going. And that's not all you got to think about. It's not just monitoring how and tailoring and reacting to a psyop like QAnon, right? You also have to think about influencers, narrative herders, bedtime story authors. In other words, it's so much easier if you have someone that's already in existence that has a platform. I mean, look, you could use me as an example. I wouldn't be immune from something like this, right? I have subscribers. I've got a following. I have people that like what I say. I'm sure I influence. I hope I influence, honestly. I mean, that's kind of why I'm doing it. I'm honest about that. I'm not trying to trick you into thinking stuff. I'm trying to be honest with you guys. But if you have someone like me, or there's lots of people with way bigger followings than I've got, some smaller or whatever, I guarantee you, if you're running an influence campaign, that's something that you're going to target. In other words, why bother with crunching the numbers with every single target that you want, when you can do it more efficiently through a conduit, through an asset? And the asset doesn't necessarily mean the asset knows they're an asset. Okay? It doesn't mean that they get someone like me and they blackmail me, right? And you have to say this, tell your audience this, or else. It doesn't have to be that. Or even like, oh, tell your audience this and we'll pay you. It doesn't have to be that at all. They just have to use an influence campaign directed at me. That's all they got to do. Assuming it works. And there's going to be, like, again, on some level, I would imagine it would probably work. Something would work on some degree, because I don't think anyone's immune to this stuff, right? It's just more of like how much it would work. Like Facebook, this was years ago too. They did a little test to see if they could put people in a bad mood, and they did it, right? Like with not 100% success. And I would like to think because I study this for a living, that I'm maybe a little more immune to it than most, but I'm sure that they could, put me in a bad mood or something. Like, I'm sure that they could fuck with my head. The right person, and maybe not everyone could, but like, I'm sure the right software with the right people behind it, no one's. That's the whole point. This is why this shit's dangerous. No one's immune to it. And so if you're one of these influence operations, why not get some of these people who have already established an audience, they've already established trust with an audience, and try to, I mean, you're going to run your own influence campaigns. You're not going to stop. It's not like you're going to stop doing what you're doing. You're going to keep doing it. But to augment that, you're going to want to find other influencers who already have, an audience, and try to get in their heads and try to influence their thinking. And like I said, this doesn't even have to be like a blackmail thing or you're getting paid thing. It could be let's go on his Facebook feed and constantly post, like, they'll dig. I would imagine that they've got a lot of data on including myself. They've got a lot of data on everybody, and they got a lot of data on all these influencers. They can go through the years and years of what you've posted on the internet. All kind of any records that you would be able to come up with. What did he study in school? What did how many kids does he have? What jobs? What's his favorite movie? What kind of music does he like? And using that information, the AI probably already has an algorithm that all you do is you feed it the data, and then it says, okay, based on this data that I have about him, he's going to be susceptible to this and this and this. These are the angles you need to use, like psychologically, because that's what it's doing. It'll create like a psychological profile, and it'll say, okay, psychologically, these are the angles of attack. And they just do what they would do to like Afghanistan to influence their election to the influencer directly, right? This is one reason, one of many, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. If I do, it's like right now. It's like I'm telling people stuff, or I'm researching something specific, right? Like either I'm releasing stuff or I am researching stuff. But I don't screw around on like Facebook or not even really Twitter. I'll tweet stuff. But and this is the other thing. Like, think about it. This, if you're wanting to, like, how would you get to an influencer, right? I mean, YouTube comments in the chat right now. I haven't been looking at it, and that's another thing. I don't look at the chat. Sorry, guys. I look at the super chats maybe at the end, but I don't look at the chat very often. And maybe after I've had some time to refine who can be in there, so you can weed out some of these people. But that's one of the reasons. You're going to have people saying shit, even if you think to yourself, oh, that's not going to bother me. That's not going to get in my head. I mean, and it might not to the degree that the person saying whatever it is they're saying, like what they want it to do. It's not going to have the same impact that they want it to. But, I mean, I'm not a robot, right? It's going to have, even if it's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, even if it's a tiny crack in my wall, my massive brick wall protecting my innermost thoughts, or I don't know where I was going with that. But anyway, you get it. Like it's gonna, it's gonna at least, it's gonna do something, right? And we're humans. That's just the way it is. In fact, even if, like, let's say I saw a comment that I knew was from a bot, that's gonna have an influence, because now I'm thinking, oh, there's bots in here. Maybe that's the influence they want. Maybe they want me to think there's bots. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you see how this can get real easy to do? If you have an AI that can crunch all these numbers and predict the behaviors. And look, it's a machine. Well, even if it was a person, it's going to get it wrong sometimes. We are human, right? We're unpredictable. We don't always behave the way that the machine or the algorithm or the analysts are going to predict that we're going to behave. But I'm telling you, as the years go by, it's going to get better and better and better at these predictions. Because at the end of the day, while we might be complex, unpredictable machines, we're still machines. Soul or no soul, we're still machines. The soul is still operating within this machine. Don't believe me? Well, then how the fuck does Down syndrome work? Does their soul have Down syndrome? No, of course not. The machine that their soul is inside of has Down syndrome. We're machines. And because we're machines, some of our behaviors, it's predictable. It just is. So that's what she covered in her documentary. It's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. I tweeted out, Susie Dawson did a really long she analyzed the documentary, and it's a really long thread. Like, I think it's like 70 tweets. Like, really, like, it's really long. And I retweeted that on my Twitter if you want to go check that out. Susie Dawson, if you don't know, is someone a journalist that has since fled to Russia, Snowden style, because she was doing a lot of reporting on the intelligence agencies, and honestly probably had tools like this unleashed on her, because these tools, they don't have to just, like, let's say, it doesn't have to be, oh, I want to influence this person to get people to vote for Trump or Biden or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be that. If you have someone that you don't like, you can tailor the message to get them to commit suicide or something like that, right? Really, I mean, you could. If your objective is to drive someone crazy, drive someone to suicide, I don't see how the AI wouldn't have that capability. If I was writing it, I would definitely include that capability. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's so that's why this software is so dangerous. Is because as it becomes more powerful, as these AIs get more refined, as the data that the AI has more access to it becomes more granular and more real time, they're going to I'm sorry, all these NPCs, they're not going to just be NPCs. They're going to be fucking wind-up toys. I mean, they are. That's most people. Most people. Imagine that. Imagine a software tool that that the highest bidder has access to, that literally controls the behavior of most people. Do you think stuff like these riots wouldn't use software like this? I mean, I don't think we have to get into all the reasons why, but it seems like that's an easier target to work with, right? An easier target to sway, an easier target to influence, an easier target to whip up into fits of violence. And actually, Millie touches on that a little. I don't think that this was part of it, but it is an important point that when Obama was president, these same people we're discussing were given free phones. The Obama phone. The Obama phone. I don't know if you guys remember that. He gave us a phone. Well, that does a couple things. One, that phone's two-way. So now this AI that you've developed has access to this community's phone. In fact, I mean, they could even make it legal. They could write that into the terms of service. Yeah, you get a free phone, but you have to share. Like, think of it this way: how many times have you seen, when you've installed a piece of software, at the very end or during the installation process, there's the little check mark where it says, can we send anonymous, so don't worry about it, it's anonymous data to help us improve our product. I hope you're not leaving that checked. I hope you're not. In fact, I have this theory that these AI systems, I don't think this is right. I think this is wishful thinking. But I have this theory that at least because of that aspect, because there is that check mark, that high IQ people that are seeing that and be like, yeah, nope, fuck that. And so the AI is, at least on some scale, probably a much smaller scale than really matters, but like on some scale, the AI is being deprived of the data from the smart people that are going, nope, fuck that. And so it's going to base all of its decisions on what influences dumber people. But that's wishful thinking. They have access to, not everyone does, but not all. The advertisers and stuff might not, but the governments and these contractors certainly have. They don't require your permission to get it. But in the case of this Obama phone thing, that could even just be in the terms of service. Oh yeah, you get this phone and it's free, but we need these anonymous statistics to help improve the Obama phone. And so they just get that data, and they now have full-on access to what this community does on phones. What memes do they share? What websites do they visit? What songs do they like? Who are their favorite movie stars? What jargon do they like? What new words have entered their vocabulary? How if you're getting all these text messages, you now know how to text like them. What videos are they commenting on? What are their comments saying? So you get all this data, and it's just like I was telling you when you're a kid and you really get to know your mom and you know exactly how to ask her for the things you want. That's what that AI just accomplished with these Obama phones. And not only that, because it's a two-way street, these Obama phones, is they can now use what they've learned to then manipulate. Just like you do with your mom. They now manipulate the people with the phones into thinking and doing whatever they want. And I'm sorry, but if you're a recipient of an Obama phone, I don't have a whole lot of hope for your ability to resist an influence campaign. For obvious reasons. So that is another aspect that she covers. But that has, like I said, I think that's just really a small piece because I don't think that they need the permission. And also, think about just every new phone that you get. The default is it gives you like news updates. You don't think that's part of this? You don't think that plugs in it? See, part of this software isn't just the AI figuring out what's going to influence you and coming up with stuff. It's the reason why none of this stuff was dangerous before or in existence before is just the sheer amount of manpower it would take, not just to perform it, but to coordinate it. Right? But I don't know how many of you listening have worked for a major corporation that works on very multi-billion-dollar projects, if not million, projects that are at least tens of millions of dollars and take maybe 10 years to accomplish. Think the iPhone. Think about the project management software required when they came out with the first iPhone. You don't think that was a complicated task? You don't think that, because think of all the different companies involved in that. You had, the Gorilla, I'm sure some people are at least familiar with the Gorilla Glass thing where, Steve Jobs went and, talked to the guy who had a glass company and got him to make the glass for the iPhone. But that's just like one tiny story in this huge, complicated ambitious project that required a lot of fucking project management. Just the hardware. And then think of the software. You had the operating system that had to be written. You had all the different apps that had to be written for a brand new operating system. This wasn't just something that, Steve Jobs was like, I know it's good. iPhone. I'm going to draw a picture of an iPhone on a napkin. and then hand it to an engineer and he's going to make me one. No, we're talking like a lot of project management went into this stuff. And if you've worked on a project like that, I'm not saying I was involved with the iPhone, but I've worked on big projects like this that cost, tens of millions of dollars and took multiple years to complete. And my part of it was only like a really compartmentalized, aspect of the bigger picture. But I would have to participate in the project management software so that the management people, project managers, would be able to, it would be impossible without this software for them to accomplish this, because there's just so many moving pieces, so many different people with different milestones to meet, with different requirements, different deadlines, different, it's just a mess. If you've got 20,000 people working on the same project, for multiple years, the only way you can accomplish that is with this project management software. So that's another aspect of this, where if you have an influence campaign and you now have the ability to manage all these moving pieces, you can add more complexity to it. You can now, instead of just saying, well, we're going to have, it's not, I don't want you to think that this software, for example, is, this is just what they use to see how, the effectiveness of QAnon, like that example, right? Where it's limited to just, how many, videos are being created and how many tweets are being made and that sort of thing. No, you could include all kinds of stuff. You could also say, okay, we're going to incorporate, we're going to see how, or maybe they already have an algorithm or, some kind of prediction of how this will unfold, but we're going to report negatively. We know that the people who like QAnon hate the Daily Beast, just as I'm just making that up. I don't know if they do. I think they do. It's a hard left, or at least that's my understanding, a hard left publication. So they could say, okay, QAnon people hate the Daily Beast. We will we'll have the Daily Beast write an article about QAnon, and it'll actually make them believe it more. Stuff like that. And you could have, and it doesn't have to be QAnon. You could have every asset you have out there. Like I was just talking about, like you're going to try to influence assets, whether they know they're an asset or not. They're going to try to influence individual people out there that have audiences. And so that's part of the management software too. If you've got a big overarching, in fact, that was part of the screenshots in the software that in Millie's documentary was, that if you had a influence campaign, it was part of a bigger campaign, and so you had to in the management software you had to tell it which it was a sub campaign of a larger campaign. So if the larger campaign, like in QAnon's case, for example, is to get Donald Trump elected, that's the overarching campaign, right? And then QAnon is like a sub campaign within that. See, and that's the sort of thing. And you can just and look, Donald Trump getting elected could be a sub campaign of a bigger campaign. You see, that's why this software and this data is so dangerous. And I don't think people are wrapping their heads around it, because they don't work in the kinds of fields that unless you're someone who's writing code, and unless you're someone who's worked with big data before to accomplish things, or maybe even used real specific AI, and realize how much better it's getting. Like the other day, there's an AI that upscales footage. How people always everyone makes fun of in the 80s, where they would say zoom, enhance, like with security camera footage. And it would blow it up to this insane, the source video, especially these days. Most people know how video works, right? So back then, you have SD video. This used to drive anyone that worked in video at the time fucking nuts. But if you had a security camera on standard def, you're talking not very many pixels. You're talking about 480 by 720 at best. And they would zoom it in. They would zoom in basically 5 pixels. And there'd be a face. And you're like, really? You zoomed in 5 pixels and made a face out of 5? No. It would just be 5 fucking giant pixels on your screen. There is no zoom, enhance, zoom, enhance. And that was true until recently. What they did was they got a bunch of low res or I'm sorry, high res footage, and then they down resed it, right? So they would shoot something in like 6K, and then they would convert it to like 320, or maybe even less. I don't know. And they would feed it into this AI, and like just hours and hours and hours of this. And the AI, by looking at hours and hours and hours of the differences between what the 6K footage looked like and the 320p footage looked like, it started to find it started to find patterns. And it could start to predict, just by looking at the 320p footage, what the 6K footage looked like. It didn't always get it right, but it's fucking scary good. Forget the name of the. I'm sure you could find it by looking at AI, scale footage, that kind of a thing on a search engine. But I had never heard of this before until recently. I don't remember how I think I stumbled across it looking for something else. And I was like, what? Okay. Because I still had that in my head. Like, zoom enhance, zoom in. Oh, AI is going to fix that. It did. It was scary good. They had example after example of you feed 320p footage into it. And like I said, it's not perfect. Like if you have text on a sign, for example, that is illegible because it's only a couple pixels, it's not going to be able to figure out what the text says. That's impossible. Well, that's the funny thing. It's actually not impossible because that's way down the road though. And even then, it would never be 100% right. But it could predict what might this text be. Like this sign is a McDonald's sign. I've read every McDonald's sign that has ever existed. So what might this text be? But anyway, that is down the road. But that's the kind of power they have now. Because a machine never gets tired of looking at this data, and it never forgets any of the patterns that it sees. And once it has it figured out, it's figured out. There's a documentary, speaking of autoplay, I don't know why YouTube maybe this was part of the influence campaign on me, right? Maybe they're trying to get me to talk to you guys about this. You never know. But one of the things that I saw recently on autoplay, and I played it twice. I usually don't have autoplay on for this very reason. Well, it's usually because it's like Fox News and Jordan Peterson like around. Really, that's all that ever autoplays. And so it's usually when I have like a new browser, because I've been installing different machines, and so it's usually when I have a new browser and I haven't turned it off or whatever, and I just have it on in the background or something. And it auto-played this documentary about a AI that they created that was kind of like the Deep Blue to beat the chess champion, only it was for the Korean game Go. And I've never played Go before. I'd never heard of Go. It looked like Othello from the 80s, where you have like the white and black circles on a board. I had never played Othello either. That's what it looked like to me. But apparently it's one of the most complicated games ever made. It's a Chinese game, but it's popular in Korea. But it's like 1,000 years old or some shit. Or maybe longer. And it's literally the most complicated game in existence. And a computer has never beat even like a amateur at Go. And so this company in San Francisco created an AI, and I think it was might have just been called AI Go or Ultra Go or something Go. And the whole documentary was about the process of creating the AI, and by the end it beats the human. Spoiler alert, I guess, but it beats the world champion in Go. And it's like this big shocker, because this was supposed to be something that was way more complicated than chess, and because there's just a million more possibilities. And not only did it beat the lead player at Go, it was making moves that had never been that no human would make, right? In fact, they looked like errors to these pro players. You know, the top players were looking at these moves and thinking, I think the computer just fucked up, because like this looks like a mistake. Like this, I don't even understand where this would go. No pun intended. And then eventually you figure it out, because like, you know, as the gameplay goes on, you realize, oh fuck, that's why he did that. So they're gonna get better and better and better, and it is something you got to be aware of, and it's something that we need to talk about. Maybe if we can't get rid of it, and we're not going to have access to it, really the only choice is to private access to you. That really is the only choice you have. If they have AIs and these influence machines that are, because look, you can think that you're totally impervious to influence. You're not. You're just not. Okay? Like no one is. You might be better than some. There's a gradient. It's not like we're all the same, right? But you're not impervious. And it's going to get to a point, unless something is done to stop this, where the only way to escape it is to deny it access to you. And there's only a few ways you can do that. And a lot of that involves a lot of unplugging. So anyway, I think it's important, you know, like the title says, who writes your bedtime stories? It's important to see who's writing my narrative. Who's writing my narrative, and are they writing it because they know I'm going to like it? Excuse me. Is this a specifically tailored narrative for me? You know, it's not like 100 years ago where if you picked up a book and you liked it, you didn't have to worry if some AI determined you would like it and wrote it specifically so you would like it, which is where we're headed. Who's writing your narrative? Because everyone in the world has a different narrative of what's going on in the world. And it used to be we had at least similar narratives, but with this atomized society, a lot of us have wildly different narratives now. So who's writing yours? And are they writing it specifically to influence you? Because our narrative is what determines what we do. My narrative determines what I do. You think I live in the middle of nowhere in a bunker because of something other than a narrative? No, my narrative is, look, it's going to be really shitty to be in cities. And it might be more than shitty. I don't know, but it's possible. That was my inner narrative. I told you guys all about this years ago. This isn't something, well, this is no surprise. I broadcast my narrative. So what did I do? Because that was my narrative. My inner narrative was like, yeah, it's going to be bad to live in cities. And I don't even know if like we can rely on supply chains, and you know, like as society just gets more and more you know, like I had a narrative in my head as to how things were going to go, and based on that narrative, I made decisions and took action. And everyone has that. Everyone has their narrative, and you base your decisions based on that narrative. So a lot of people have a totally different narrative than I do. And they do the opposite things that I do. Here's a perfect example of that. You know, the George Floyd incident. What was the narrative? The narrative was, well, a bunch of racist cops, for no reason at all, killed this innocent black man like they've been doing to our people for decades. If you believe that, if that's your narrative, it's pretty easy to predict what you're going to do, right? You're going to behave based on that narrative. Your actions are all going to be based on the narrative. So if you see the looting and rioting and you think to yourself like, wow, that is so insane, that's so out of control, I can't believe it, why are they doing that? It's because you don't have that same narrative. Like all those stupid, like white chicks mostly, but like, you know, all these white people that are kneeling and doing all that shit. That's because that makes sense with their narrative. Your narrative determines what you're going to do. And since the dawn of time, primitive tribes have a narrative. And it's to control the tribe. Not necessarily anything nefarious, but, you know, it's good to have everyone on the same page with the same narrative, motivated by the same things based on the narrative, right? You know, the American dream is a narrative. And anyone can become president. You can be born poor and work your way up the system and eventually be in the White House someday. You know, of course, that's not true, but that's the narrative, right? And it helps certain people if you believe that narrative, because you're going to behave as if that's true. It's going to be part of your narrative. You know, think about all George Washington's I will never tell a lie. I chopped down the chair. That didn't happen. It's part of that's a made up narrative. There's a lot of stuff, by the way, that Lincoln said about slaves and black people in general that didn't get included in the narrative. Got to maintain the narrative. And at least, even if it's fake, like in the case of Washington and Lincoln and all these people, at least with these fake narratives, the American dream and such, if everyone believes it, if everyone's on board, you know, yeah, you'll be maybe under the influence of that narrative, but it's actually, I mean, you know, it's a lot better than everyone having like unbelievably different narratives like we have now. You know, because at least at that, if everyone has the same narrative, it's just like with the Bible or any other book, right? There's one book, and then there's just different interpretations of it, right? So you can have a book like the Bible, and you have 10 different people read it, and they come up with 10 different ideas as to what these passages mean. But it's the same book. It's the same narrative. It's just they have different interpretations. Right? And you at least have that kind of a wiggle room. Instead of the chaos that we have today, where now you've got 10 different interpretations of the Bible, of the Torah, of the Talmud, of the Quran, of the Satanic Bible, of whatever Darwinian humanist, New Agey shit is in, whatever. So, and that's just one aspect, right? That's just religion. So you have all these different narratives going on now, and all these different interpretations going on now. You have chaos. You don't have the ability. You see, the slaves, I guess, don't have the ability to form a cohesive group when there's that much. Just, among the dissident right. Think of how many different narratives are going on. I don't know if that, I call that dissident right, you know what I mean? But like, you have people that are following the Q narrative. You have people that are following the NatSoc narrative. You have people that are following the paleo-conservative narrative. You have all these different narratives, and then different interpretations of those narratives. And that's just one subset of the right-wing narrative, you could say. You see what I'm saying? Like, multiculturalism is just going to exacerbate this. Which makes you wonder if the ruling class, people always say this all the time, right? They always say, well, it doesn't matter who gets elected. The same thing keeps happening. Well, maybe, just maybe, they have the same narrative. Maybe they have different, like people I've often wondered, is the left-right thing that goes on at the ruling class level, how much of it is just complete fiction, and some of it is, and how much of it is it like a genuine difference of opinion? It's probably a little bit of both, right? It's probably the same narrative and just two different interpretations, but they're definitely on the same page. They're all going to the same meetings. They're all part of the same clubs. They might just have different ways of getting those same objectives. So anyway, I don't know how long I've been talking. I think it's been a while, though. Yeah, a little over an hour. So I'm gonna look over. I'm gonna see if I can find some super chats. I don't know if anyone sent some, and I don't know how to look at those, but I will figure that out. Viewer activity, I think, is where it is. Here we go. From Cert, $50. I appreciate it. Black pills are racist. Indeed, that is what they will have you believe. That is one narrative. One narrative is that pretty much everything is racist. I was thinking about this the other day. So you hear the people that are talking about racism is, can only be from white people. Racism it has to be from a place of power. Well, actually, I can't talk about this on YouTube. See, all the more reason to go over to DLive and BitChute, because this might be the subject of a future stream. All right, we got Doodle Squatch After Dark, $5. Tom Hanks is a Greek citizen now. I did not know that. Is that true? I don't know if that's true. That would be very curious if that is the case. And by the way, when I made fun of the Tom Hanks, for those of you who haven't been going to BitChute and haven't seen, I think it's my last video on BitChute, where I make fun of Tom Hanks' pedo dungeons. I'm not saying that Tom Hanks is a squeaky clean guy. I'm making fun of the fact that he probably does not have underground tunnels full of... Anyway. Charlemagne, $5. I watched a video on creating solar-powered AC. Search solar-powered... Oh, okay. Air conditioner from the channel Tech Ingredients. I think I saw that, actually. Excuse me. It did look like it's a little complicated, but it didn't look like it was that expensive. It was a little. You gotta remember, for me, anything I can't have shipped out here, which isn't like a lot. I mean, it has to be anything you can get on eBay or something like that, right? Because if you have to have it delivered freight, like if it's something big, it's like really expensive to ship. And then if I have to drive out to go get it, like at a Home Depot, I don't have like a Home Depot or something like that real close by. I'm driving like 100 miles or something if I go to do that. And in my truck, in my very old big block truck, that gets just the gas on that gets expensive. James Fields, 1999 says message redacted. James Fields, 1999 again. Devin, have you checked out the Polstrat project? I have not. Not sure what that is. I am copying and pasting that now to my notes. Right? You know what? I'll just Google it right now. Why not? Let's see. I hate that I keep saying, I don't use Google, but I hate that that's part of my vernacular now. Polstrat project. I don't know what this is. It looks more complicated than just like a thing, but I've got that open now. I'll look into it. Telecast Bear 199. Are you Christian? Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked about this before. I don't have the most rock solid faith all the time. I don't think anyone really does. I mean, maybe a few people do, but yeah, I mean, I certainly believe in the theology. I'm not one of these people that gets super into the nitty gritty of every little thing, you know, like, and there's all these different flavors of Christianity, and I think some of it's self-defeating, you know, having all these different factions fighting each other, you know, it's different narratives, I guess, right? But yeah, I think Christianity is a part of my heritage, certainly. Millennial Honky 89, $50, thumbs up, appreciate it. $2 for Mad Cat. Do another Owen Benjamin stream. I'd do that. I mean, I don't invite myself on other people's streams. Telecaster Bear 199. Thanks for the IG vids during the peak crazy stuff. Yeah, that got for those of you who know that got my account banned, and that put me, just to give you an idea, the influence stuff we're talking about. I was posting every video I could find as quickly as I could find it, and I was the one finding the videos and posting it, and it was putting me in a real fucking shit mood. I mean, because all I was watching all day long was just like fighting and rioting and fires and burning. And like I knew on an intellectual level, like, okay, this isn't it yet. But I started to think maybe it was, because like it kept going so long and it was so brutal and no one was stopping. I was just like, what the fuck? So just to give you an idea of how, you know, that can mess with your head. And yeah, and then not sleeping very much, right? Because I was always posting. And with a slow internet connection, by the way, which is not easy. I was sitting there finding the video, downloading it, which takes some time, and then uploading it, which takes some time. And then like you can't, there's only so many things you can do at the same time, because most of what I was doing, it was on a tablet. Anyway. Millennial Honky 89, $50. Remember the, yes, words. The words, yes. Brent Gordon 499. Stay strong, everyone. I agree. Yeah, look, here's the thing. I made that part of my QAnon video. Look, just because we're not getting saved by Superman doesn't mean that you have to be like, oh God, the end is near, we're all gonna die. I've never said that. It's just that you can't keep thinking you're gonna be saved by Superman. Okay? It doesn't mean that everything's shit because Superman's not going to do everything for you. You know, everyone needs to like, when I hear and everyone knows who I'm talking about, and yes, I do too. I'm just trying not to be a dick about it. When I hear people talk about like, oh, you gotta make sure everyone, you know, you gotta keep morale up, blah blah. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, you can't lie to people to keep them happy about what's going on. Anyway. Hugo the Pork Eater, $3. Some kind of weird hippo gif thing. Telecast Bear 199. Look up Save James, please. Save James? I don't know what that is. I feel like if I look that up, I'll look it up right now, but I feel like I'll find like a lot of weird stuff, because that's not very specific. Save James. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Save James, different things. The one, well, this is current, actually. Texas judge reverses. Oh, that's Save James. Yep. Well, I mean, look, who didn't see that coming? See, here's the thing. Everyone gets mad at me and calls me a black pillar and like, oh, you're just in a bad mood because you're predicting something bad's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, but something bad is going to happen, you know? Like, and with this, too, you know, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, the judge ruled, but you got to see, people get excited over headlines and they don't drill down into it and realize that's not the end, right? It's like, okay, another example of this was that guy in Albuquerque who shot an Antifa guy, totally legit. Everyone saw the video. He was well within his right to do that. And then he was charged, and then they dropped the charges. And I told them immediately, I was like, look, they dropped these charges, but that doesn't mean they're not going to reassign different charges, right? Like, I think they kind of knee-jerked the wrong charges. And now the prosecutor actually wants to get a conviction. And that's what happened. And everyone was calling me a Debbie Downer. And I'm just like, no, you got to understand how this works. But yeah, for those who don't remember, Save James is that little boy that the mom wants to turn him into a girl, and the dad doesn't. But now, not only is the mom getting her way, the dad's going to pay for it. But are we surprised? And again, this is the beginning. This isn't, this is going to be as shocking in like a couple of years that this is happening as finding out there was a gay marriage in a Unitarian church. Diversity in Comics Bear $4.99. Your uploads have been missed. Yeah, like I said though, there is still content on BitChute and DLive. In fact, there was even a DLive stream I didn't put on BitChute because it was like kind of meh. But and I got a lot of stuff in the works. Like it's 85 degrees currently in the room I'm sitting in, and look, it's tough when all your computers are broken. And it's 85 degrees to sit down at your computer and do stuff. All right, Spike says, system is in total control. We don't stand a chance. No, I mean, some people don't stand a chance. But look, some people don't stand a chance to a lot of stuff. Some people don't stand a chance to alcoholism, I mean, this is just another thing. And it's going to have to get defeated one way or another. But like I said, you can just deny them access to you. It's difficult. I do it though. I'm still on the internet. I'm just talking to you guys right now. You can still be on the internet. Doesn't mean that you can't. You have to just disconnect or unplug entirely. Just don't watch their crap and don't use crap social media stuff. Zach, $5. Holy shit! Caught Devin live. Yes, you did. Livua, I don't know. Floria. I think it sounds like a plant. When is your second book coming out? I get asked that a lot, and I know. I wish it was faster. Also, please return to at fixed schedule at least a video every fortnight. Was 14 days. Yeah, like I said, that's still true if you're at the DLive and BitChute. Big Thor, 20 knocks. I don't know what a knock is. I think that's Norwegians. Kroners or something. You're a champ, Devin. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Alan, 10 pounds. Could it be that America versus Russia narrative is fake? Well, it was, I think, during the Cold War. Honestly, I think a lot of the Cold War stuff was fake. And there's a couple books on the subject where we were in the background sharing information with each other, but it was a good narrative to get both slave classes because we work better when we have like the boogeyman, right? So like the Russians, their boogeyman was the imperialist capitalist Americans, and the Americans was the Iron Curtain, the what was it, the evil empire or whatever. So, but at the same time, it could be one of those things where the ruling class is testing out two different systems simultaneously. So like, well, let's try out these two different systems at the same time. You guys do this one. But there was definitely sharing going on in the background. A lot of it was fake and gay. And even now, right? And if you're talking about the election stuff, they're not talking about Russia. And I know, look, Adam Green, I haven't looked at his stuff yet. He keeps talking about how Russia did interfere. I maybe they did. I haven't seen the evidence that maybe he has. Maybe I have to watch what video he's got on that. Ramon Luvano. Devin, I am a Mexican who discovered you through one of your kin. I will be leaving the U.S. soon enough. I wish you and your people the best. God bless. All right, well, thanks. I appreciate that. And look, I'll talk about it some other time. But yes, kind words. Appreciate it. Penelope Maynard, always with the awesome super chats. I'm very. I don't even know how to thank you. I think you're the record holder so far. But yes, $200 from Penelope. By the way, if you don't follow Penelope on Twitter, I would do so now. Go to Twitter and look for Penelope Maynard. She's got a lot to offer, and honestly has a very similar background. Like we both started out as really pushing Trump, is hoping that he was going to pull us out of a lot of this mess that we're in. But as time goes by, it just seems like he's another piece of the machinery. And by the way, this is all part of it. With Millie's documentary, she kind of glosses over Trump's participation in a lot of this stuff. With Cambridge Analytica and all this other stuff. I mean, it's not just the deep state and Democrats, and everyone's using these influence programs. And she does mention Roger Stone, and who was Roger Stone working for? So it's not like rocket science, right? But she makes it sound like, oh, but Trump didn't like that, so that's why he fired Roger. I don't think that's why Trump. I don't think Trump didn't like that. Of course he liked it. They all like it. It works. Why wouldn't you like it? People got to get over this idea that Trump is the character that he plays on TV. I really don't understand why people think that. I don't know that he's as bad as some people think, but he's certainly not as good as most of his supporters think. But anyway, yeah. Penelope Maynard, thank you very much, and really you're helping me keep the AC ineffectively going. Morgan Davis, $2. Vox thinks it's evil to tell people the truth about Q. Yeah, I know. Look, I know. Well, does he though? Does he? Does he really think that? I'm not going to start any drama over $2. I'm not going to start any drama at all. Look, I nudged that hornet's nest. It is what it is. I'll just say, ask yourself, does he really think you're doing the devil's work for telling people the truth? And I'm going to throw something else in here. Okay? A lot of people have criticized God probably doesn't exist, but it's better to believe in him because it makes you have a happier life. Right? Like, that's the criticism. Well, I mean, I have the same criticism, by the way. And maybe I have it wrong, but that's my understanding, right? And if not Jordan Peterson, there's people that think that way, right? That, okay, factually, there is no God. I'm an atheist, but I'll have a happier life if I believe in God. And I don't see the difference between that and saying to people, well, Q is fake, but it's better if people believe it because they'll have a happier life. Sounds like the exact same thing to me. And anyway, that's all I'm going to say. So Gregory Dickinson, $5. Really appreciate that. Oh, wait, look, we got another one. Livia Floria, £2. Not a plant, bruh. Not sure what that means. And I got to see. Oh, this isn't up. That's because it's not showing me everything. I'm missing. It doesn't show. Let me maximize this screen. There we go. That showed it to me. Gregory Dickinson, hey, from a bunker in Oklahoma. Right on. Oklahoma is now a lot of Indian land, huh? Hopefully you're not on a reservation now. Most people aren't going to know what that's about, but he does, I'm sure. Matthew Jameson, $5. Devin, you ever read Stephen King? I can't help but notice many of his books and old horror books in general have rapey child predator tones. Yes, including especially the book It. It's like a child rape orgy. And yes, there is a lot of that stuff in his books. A lot of his, I used to read his books, but it started to get really gross. And It was probably one of the last ones where I was just like, yeah, can't do this. Okay, Spike, $2. One day drones will hunt us. No revolt. The right lost. No. Again, we're not at Skynet levels yet. That's still really down the road. I don't advocate that kind of thinking at all. I think it's self-defeating. I mean, it's quite literally self-defeating. Bjorn Magnusson. Bjorn Magnusson. $50 and no message that I can see. So, really appreciate it, Bjorn. That really is helpful. You just paid my internet bill for the month. Well, maybe not after YouTube takes its cut, and provided they don't end my account anytime soon. But that's why you need to go over to DLive. I'm going to remind you guys one last time. Go to DLive and go to BitChute and subscribe to me over there. And I will be doing more of these kind of informal talks on DLive and less on YouTube for some obvious reasons. There's also a couple other things that are coming out that I'm going to check out. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but like different platforms that look like that might have streaming. I wish BitChute would have streaming. I talk to those guys sometimes, and I've told them how I feel about that. But I think they're aware of it. It's just a lot of infrastructure, I think, to be able to handle smooth streaming. Even YouTube doesn't have it right all the time. They've got all of the backing of Google. So anyway, really appreciate it, guys. Stay strong. Do not fall into the trap of thinking everything's hopeless. It's not. It's just hopeless to use the system. It's not hopeless. We've survived many things. Like, this isn't the first time our people has been faced with odds. And it might be one of those things where we're in for like a couple centuries of bad. It could be. That's fine. Look, it is what it is. You know, we could cry that we weren't the ones that were born during, the time when boomers were born, where we got to ride like the wave and of wealth coming from the victory of the victory of World War II. And we can complain about it and whatever, but it's, it is what it is. We're still, bottom line, we're still better off than a lot of people that have lived throughout history, and it's always good to have perspective on, it's bad. But look, one of the reasons why it's bad is it's so good. So don't lose sight of that. Anyway, in the meantime, you guys have a great week, and we'll talk again soon. For BlackPilled, I am, of course, Devin Stack.